Hi, I'm Katie Norman, and I'm sorry I can't be there this morning, but I wanted to talk about an experience that I had about 6 months ago in the operating room. Before I tell you the full story, I'd like to sort of back up and give you a preface to what actually set this up. My resident and I were a late start, which means we have a few hours before the actual operation starts because the surgeon that I was working with was doing residency interviews. So the schedule was 10:30 to start. So around 10 o'clock, my resident and I go to see the patient to pre-op him. I'm outside the room looking on the computer, looking at labs, while my resident is inside interviewing the patient. About a few minutes into the interview, the nurse comes out and grabs me and says, "You need to go in there, you need to go in there," and grabs the resident and says, "You need to come out." So we kind of meet halfway, and I said, "What's going on?" And so the resident explained to me that when he walked into the room, the patient had asked him, "Where are you from?" And my resident responded, "I'm from California." And the patient said, No, where are you really from?" And my resident responded by saying, "I'm from Pakistan." And the patient said, "Oh, are you Muslim?" And the resident said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he said, "Oh my gosh, all the people from Pakistan, they're killers. They're all killers. They're terrorists. This is bad." And at that point, the nurse had overheard this and grabbed the resident and out of the room. So that was the end of the encounter for that part. So she comes to me and the resident and says, "What do we do?" Well, I haven't actually been in this sort of situation before, so I said, "Just wait here. Don't go in there to my resident. Just stay here." So at that point, I get on the phone and start calling patient relations. And I wanted somebody from an outside person that was not involved with their case to sort of come in and mediate and sort of diffuse the situation, and also to explain from an outside standpoint that this behavior is not acceptable. So I call patient relations, finally get them on the phone. It's about a 5-minute process, and patient relations says, "We're busy right now, we can't come down to help." And I said, no, I really think that somebody needs to come in and intervene and have a second party involved that says that this is not acceptable. Again, patient relations says, "No, we agree, it's not acceptable, but we're busy right now, we can't send anybody down. Just send us an email about what happened." Clearly, I wasn't going to get any backup, so I call my attending anesthesiologist in charge of the board runner, and when he picks up the phone, I said, "Hey, I need to talk to you," and he says, "I can't talk now, we have an emergency, whatever you need to do, just do." So I decided to send my resident into switch residents. So I'm running 2 operating rooms. One of them, I have another female in that OR. And I told my resident, go into the OR, switch with them, and be in that room. And then ask the new resident, Lise, to come in, and she'll be taking over the care of this case. My resident was pretty adamant that he wanted to take care of this patient, that he wanted to show the patient that he could do a good job and sort of disprove this patient's beliefs. I told my resident that's not going to happen. The patient has these beliefs, and on top of it, I didn't want him to be put in sort of a legal situation that maybe something didn't go right in the end, and of course he would have gotten blamed, and I did not feel that that was the best for my resident. So my resident left, and my new resident came in, and I walked into the room to explain to the patient that this behavior was not okay. So as I walk into the room, I said, introduced myself and said, I'm removing my resident from this case. Immediately the patient says, "Oh, thank goodness." I said, "Well, no, it's not really for you. It's for him. He's a great resident." He said, Oh, I'm sure he's great, but then, so did other people think that the situation in San Bernardino where they started rambling on and on about different sort of terrorist situations occurred. So I stopped him right there and I said, "Okay, I just want you to know that we do not agree with your behavior, but we're going to take care of you." and said, I need to move on to take care of you. So that was the encounter. I mean, a total of 5-10 minutes, and then we proceed on into the operating room. And then I started processing things and thinking about what had happened, and just sort of looking back. And part of me was pretty upset with the encounter. And then things started coming out after that. When we got in the operating room, of course we were delayed because of the me calling and talking. And so when the surgeon asked, why was this delayed, the nurse who had been there the whole time said, patient didn't like his anesthesiologist, which was clearly a misrepresentation of what had happened and almost put the onus on us that there was a problem. So that was very frustrating, and I said, no, that's not exactly what happened. You need to hear the story. So I explain it then. And then proceed on with the case, and the case is over, and I started telling people what had happened about, can you believe this guy? This was awful, pretty difficult situation that I was in, and my colleagues were saying I shouldn't have done the case, I shouldn't have done it, I should have refused care on this patient, which at the time I didn't even consider because I didn't know that would be an option. Looking back, I still don't think I could have canceled the case because there was nobody else available, and this sort of was a situation where I didn't feel very supported if I had made that decision, and probably wouldn't have been held up by other people in other situations. So that was my experience that I had a few months ago. Still bothers me, and I can't imagine being the actual resident involved in it because I think that would have been even worse for him. But seeing such interaction between two people and hearing such hatred from somebody was quite disturbing. So thank you for listening to my story.